Alright guys, so welcome back to the channel. So before we get onto the weekly analysis, I do have a very special and exciting announcement for you. As you can see by the sign on our wall, Elevating Traders guys is now live. Our doors are open. You can head over to our website, purchase your challenges right now. In fact, we are celebrating a launch with a launch discount code ET50, which does give you 50% off your account purchase, guys. So if you're excited as I am, make sure you head over to the website today and go check out our challenges. If you're not in the Discord already, guys, you should be in there, and if you're not, check it out. Link in the description to that. We are growing a community there with other traders, including myself. You can share ideas, chat about trading, other things there as well, and there'll be more updates about Elevating Traders there as well, so you don't want to miss out on that. But guys, make sure you go check it out, and let's get back into the weekly analysis. So I do have a few trades to report on. I was holding some shorts in Aussie CHF, so I'm shorts in pound yen and longs on Euro USD. I was stopped out for Euro USD. I was taking out break even on Aussie CHF, and I'm still holding pound yen at the moment. So this is Aussie CHF. I was short from not last week but the week before on Tuesday. Nice move to the downside, but we had a lot of consolidation. It's just about taking me out the trade. I'm still pretty bearish as long as price holds onto that level there, which I shorted from not last week, the week before. I'm anticipating a big sell back into the low. So now I'm looking to see price can push back up there. I can find another re-entry and then get the short. If price was to break through, then I'll look to probably reevaluate my bias and possibly look for some longs, possibly back to that high there as well, because at that point a bit of a bullish trend is forming there on the daily chart, and I will be looking at some swings there to the upside. But I'm still bearish, just been taking out the trade because of the management there. But in terms of the entries, I'll be looking for some re-entries back at the high. Euro USD, I was stopped out on. Euro was very bearish this week, and we did see a lot of downside. I was anticipating price to hold into this area, see the next high low. Had some nice other confluences lining up at that particular point. I was looking to see if I can catch that next high low and see some upside there. But since we've got the break of that area, I've definitely backed away from Euro now, and I'm being a bit more neutral on my bias with this one, because we are still quite choppy, and now that we've broken through that support level, I'm no longer necessarily expecting such a clean swing move to the upside. I think long term we are probably going to be bullish, but we might end up pushing a little bit further down first before I see that big swing. And I'm looking at a similar thing on the DXY, so you see what I mean in a moment. But for Euro, yeah, looking at buys but not playing out. And then pound yen, still holding on to that one just about. Ooh, that's the wrong one. I need to go to FXCM. So yeah, pound yen, I'm still holding on to this one. Very, very close to stopping me out this week, but price is still just about holding on to that resistance level there. So we'll see how that maps out going to next week. I'm still pretty bearish with the yen pairs, looking at a pretty big drop to the downside, but it's been a tough hold because price has been so sideways, crying out for some momentum. Hopefully we can get that next week. So that's kind of an update on my trades this week. In terms of the dollar, we'll take a look before we get into our first market, which is Euro USD. So Euro USD, so the DXY, I am looking for some downside from roughly around 104. I do think the market's been really bullish, and we're likely going to see a retracement, bit of a breather. You can see we've just been storming to the upside, so we're likely to have a bit of a breather, and maybe we're seeing evidence of that happening now. It looks like price is finally breaking out of this ascending channel, but 104 looks like a big level, and I was originally looking for the retest of it when we did break through. Unfortunately, we didn't get it, so now I'm looking for us to get that retest and see some downside. But longer term, if I expand to the higher time frames, it does look like the market is just ranging in this area. I do think the bigger move most likely will break lower, but we might see price push to higher prices back to the upper end of the range first before the big sell, which is why with Euro we might see a bit more downside first before the big buy, but doesn't mean there aren't opportunities in the meantime. So if I go over to Euro right now, with Euro USD going into next week, I am looking at some upside. However, it might just be for the short term, because we do have this lovely daily low here, which to me looks like a nice place for some longs. But as we start coming back into some highs here, especially this area, this could be what then sends the market back down again. If I draw Fibonacci from the high to the low, you can see the 50% lines up really nice there. So I'm kind of looking for Euro USD to go for a bit of a pullback, then maybe see some downside from one of those two areas. similar to what I'm looking for the DXY, downside in the dollar, then possibly some more buys later on. So in the meantime, buys look good from roughly around 1.08. You can see we had a really big move to the upside from that area. So I like the swings here for euro, still kind of steadily moving in this channel to the downside as well, similar to the dollar as well. So possibly might see another push down, but really looking for bullish opportunities here to take euro back up again, and that looks like a nice buy in itself. Then like I said, we might see some sells at a later date from these areas, so it could be a nice opportunity to take advantage of a pullback on euro and then sell it some more when we do get those opportunities. But yeah, for euro, I still anticipate some upside. Looks like I was probably a little bit early to the party with my entry last week, but since we've had a big drop, the market's still very overextended, so it's likely going to have a bit of a bounce to the upside, but I just don't expect it to last for too long. When we start approaching some of these areas here at 1.09 400, that looks like a nice place for a short. Of course, we'll see how price reacts when we get there, and then we make that call. Same for the level up there as well, 1.1, looking for a short to the downside. So that's very much my plan going to next week for euro. Okay, so over to USD JPY. So I'm still expecting downside with the yen pairs. It has just been a slow grind for a lot of them and a lot of consolidation as well. So it has been very, very slow. But with USD JPY, we're still trading at some areas where I do think we can see some sellers step in. We're seeing some signs of that with how correct the market is looking on the lower time frames. And we are coming to some big levels on the higher time frames, which is this 149, which was sort of breaking through, but more importantly, 152 as well, which if we do push there next week, I do think some sells will look good there. Possibly, if everything goes to plan, for a big swing back down to 141, 140, which of course the risk reward looks really good. But the main thing I'm looking at is this massive head and shoulder pattern on the higher time frames with the left, with the head and the right shoulder, which could be forming now, or we might push a little bit higher. But generally speaking, looking for the right shoulder to form in that area for a big move to the downside. So I'm pretty bearish with dollar yen, as I have been for a while, and the same with other yen pairs as well. In terms of finding some opportunities, you can see how corrective price is. So typically when we've seen price action like this, we're expecting price to break down. In terms of finding entries, there's kind of two ways I'm looking at it. You can even wait for a strong break of that consolidation ascending channel, find some entries on the break, stops above the high, and then look for your swing. Or you could wait for a bit more of a conservative and more refined entry, which would be, let's say we do get the breakout and we'll look for the retest of that prior low. So something like this, or maybe the hourly or even lower. And you can find your entries that way on the retest. And again, you're probably not going to be looking for the full swing back down to 141, 140. Maybe a push back into this area where we did see a lot of resistance form, some support there as well, around 146. Looks like a pretty reasonable move for next week for dollar yen. So very bearish. As I said, 152 still like a really nice level. I would definitely keep an eye on for some sells. Again, I'm going to be looking for that bigger swing. I'll be trading stops, so we'll see how far we can take it. But the idea is that I'm expecting a lot of downside for these yen pairs, and we're still seeing evidence that that is likely to come, especially with this corrective movement to the upside, which more often than not doesn't last, and you do expect price to break down. But of course, we need that breakout first. We need that momentum to come first. So either finding some entries on that breakout or looking for the retest could be the call. We'll see how things progress next week. If we do push high, 152 is always there. We'll keep an eye on that area. You can see really strong resistance, support there as well. So a very critical level there for some sells. So keep an eye on both areas, but looking for a big move to the downside back to 141, 140 for dollar yen. Okay, so over to dollar CAD. So dollar CAD, I am still bullish on this one after the really big, impressive break to the upside we had over the past few days, really just leaving this area in the dust and giving us a very powerful swing. So I'm looking for the correction of that for more upside, because if I do expand to the higher time frames, what we really have is just a big consolidation on the weekly chart. I was expecting price just to continue to the downside back to the lower end of the range, but we didn't get that. Price kind of stopped halfway, and now it's looking like price is likely to push back into the upper end of the same range, which is, if I just clean up the chart, which is back to the high here around 1.388, roughly around 1.39. So that's where it looks like price is slowly headed towards, and if we can get some pullbacks along the way, that would be nice. Again, It doesn't mean we have to look for the full swing. The potential is there to carry the trade for the swing back to the high, but even if we have a trade, let's say we get the pull back into this area, buys from that level back to this level here, let's say we pull back from there, that's already a phenomenal trade in itself, especially with dollar CAD being very choppy. You don't want to have too big of a targets because we do tend to reverse on ourselves quite a lot, so it's always a bit awkward to hold this one for long. But in terms of the potential for the upside, it's definitely there. It's just whether we will see such a big pullback or not. We might end up creating levels of support which we can work with during the week. We already started doing that at the moment. There's some support here. Price would come back, retest, potentially use that to continue higher. So that could be a nice intraday, intra-week setup you could look at, because again, a pullback all the way down to 1.364, probably, unless we see a lot of momentum, might be a little bit unlikely. But in terms of my plan, that's definitely my preferred level. So if we get there, I'll be happy to take buys. If not, dollar CAD is not at the top of my watch list. There's other pairs that look a bit more promising, so that's what I'm focused on. But if dollar CAD does get a pullback to this area, then I'll definitely take note and probably start to look for some entries. In terms of more realistic pullback, we could see is a retest of this low here around 1.374, nice double bottom, and that could be a nice swing back into the high, or maybe back into the weekly high just above us there. You can leave some positions to run. It'll be up to you guys how you want to manage it, but there's a lot of room for us to move into for dollar CAD. It's just about buying those pullbacks and riding that momentum. And 1.374, 375 and 1.364 will be the ideas I would have for some long opportunities if we get those pullbacks. So keep an eye on that for dollar CAD next week. Okay, so next up we got euro pound. So euro pound's come back into a big level on the daily, weekly, and even the monthly chart, and I do think this is time to start looking for some buys for euro pound. I've been pretty bearish because the market has been slowly moving to the downside. We've been seeing, consecutive lower lows and lower highs. However, now that we've approached this massive level here at 0.83, this is the weekly chart, by the way, you can see that each time we've been here over the past few years, the market has really rejected this level and seen a lot of upside. So I do think we'll probably see the same again. Maybe not necessarily all the way up to the areas up here. We don't need it to be that big as well, but typically this is where a lot of buyers would be stepping into the market, trying to take price higher. Even if it's just a slight move like that, that's still an opportunity for buys and definitely a sign to back away from the sell. So this is definitely bullish territory, and now we're going to be looking for evidence for some buys. But because the market has been slowly falling, we've seen a bit of a bearish trend. Taking buys here are a little bit aggressive, especially if you're going to be in an intraday time frame, because we could potentially see some spikes as we did over here. You can see price spike through. We could do that again before we see the bigger move. It's difficult to catch that turnaround, that reversal on a pinhead, on a dime. So if we are going to be looking at even the daily chart and below, you want to wait for evidence that the market's about to reverse. And what that would be in the form of double bottoms, break of structure, some higher highs and higher lows building up. Say, for example, we've tested it once, we push up, come back down again. That could be a nice time to look for some entries, or if price goes and breaks structure, for example, leaves behind an area we can look for the retest and look for a higher low. That could be a nice opportunity there as well. Just going straight in for the buy is obviously going to be a very aggressive trade. Again, if you have a big enough stop loss, it could play out, but it's just very difficult to anticipate a reversal of a trend. Definitely one that's been going on for so long and higher time frames as well. And you don't know if price wants to have a deeper test of that same area. So waiting for some double bottoms or break of structures can definitely allow you to mitigate against some unnecessary losses, and wait for true evidence or stronger evidence that the market is likely to reverse anyway. And if we are going to reverse this area, we're going to see a lot of upside most likely. So you don't need to be the first one into the trade to catch a big winner here. Looking for some break of structures or double bottoms, waiting for some reversal patterns can help you miss out on some losing trades that are just unnecessary to take, and get you into some wins and still take advantage of some big swings. So with euro pound, starting to look for buys now. I know we're still kind of bearish, but because of where we are, looking to anticipate some buys. Looking for the double bottom is still a bit aggressive, but at least there's some signs that the market is rejecting. Waiting for some break of structures and some pullbacks is definitely the more conservative approach, but you might have to wait a little bit longer for that to set up. But that's kind of what I'm looking at for euro pound. In terms of targets, we're just going to look to take it back to where it came from. Back into these highs look good. I think we can go a lot further, probably up to there, but we'll discuss that another time. For now, still looking at buys from around 0.83 and looking to target some of the highs around 0.842, 0.846 for next week. Okay, so over to Aussie dollar. So Aussie dollar, I'm still looking for upside with this one as we approach coming into that big level support in the daily chart. In fact, as long as we stay above this, I'm still bullish. If price was to break through, there probably still will be some upside because the market's quite overextended, but I'm no longer as confident that I'm expecting a trend to fall and price to really push on. It might be that we're just forming just a longer period in this consolidation because we have been incredibly flat. I'm anticipating us to start to break to the upside and start to trend higher, but if we do start taking out some of these lows, we may just stay a little bit longer inside that consolidation. So that big bullish swing I'm anticipating will have to be put on pause for now if we do go and break that low, but as we can see, we haven't done that yet. So I'm still looking for buys in this area around 0.665. It does look like that first area is kind of not being respected as support since price has broken through. So this is really now where my area of interest lies. Let's see if we hold it and I'm bullish, or we break through, then I'm becoming a bit more neutral. In terms of targets, I think a pushback to 0.68 looks really, really good. If you can get a swing back into that area like that, I think that's a phenomenal trade. Of course, there is that possibility we might continue back to the high. It's up to you how you want to manage it in terms of targets. Of course, a bit more aggressive, a bit more optimistic. But of course, the risk reward will make up for it if it does play out. But in terms of a solid place for an entry and a stop loss, I'm looking around this 0.665, 664 region. And I think a realistic target for next week, pushed to 0.68. Even the high here, looks pretty reasonable, around 0.676. Having a target back to the high there makes a lot of sense. Again, it's up to you guys how far you want to take your trades and how aggressive you want to be. But in terms of a swing approach, this is kind of what I'm looking at for next week for Aussie dollar, and possibly that full swing back to the high as well. But very, very bullish on Aussie. The market's quite overextended, so I expect a bit of a pop to the upside anyway. But we have to see how price reacts, wait for our candlestick opportunities, and then take some trades when everything is looking in tip-top shape. But that is the plan going to next week for Aussie dollar. Okay, so next up we got NZD CAD. NZD CAD I'm still bullish on. I'm still looking for a move like this back to the high, 0.86. But again, in terms of entry, it's a bit awkward now. I did call out this low here as a nice place to buy. In fact, it's a very similar opportunity to what we just discussed on the Aussie dollar in terms of we've got the higher highs and higher lows. This is the low that gave us the high, and I don't really want to see price break through that. In fact, if price does break through this low next week, I'll probably scrap that bullish bias and start to look for a bit more downside back into that low. So yeah, if we do break through that, I will definitely lose the bullish bias for now and anticipate more downside. But we did hold on to that level this week, and we did pretty well. So I am looking for a big swing back to the high here. But in terms of entries, since we've already bounced from that level, the next best place is if we were to break through this, look for some retest, and then continue. So proven to be a really sturdy level of resistance in the past, this 0.84 area. If I drop to the 4 hour, if we can start to break above that and start to put some bullish structure in the 4 hour, that's a really positive sign that we are probably going to push higher. And then we're just looking to find those pullbacks, those entries to take this, back into the swing high on the daily chart, which is around the 0.86 area. Big psychological level up there. So there's a lot of upside potential for NZD CAD, but I want to see something like this for next week. We already had a couple bounces off that low, which is great, but we have found some resistance and struggled at that area. So I want to see price breakthrough, really tell me that the buyers are back in control. We're back above a key level, which is 0.84. And then I'll be looking for the retest to continue higher. If that doesn't happen, and price finds resistance and it breaks lower, then like I said, I'll scrap that bullish bias and probably start anticipating some more downside back into that low. Then I'll reanalyze and probably come up with some new setups for the following week. So if that does happen, scrap the bearish bullish bias and probably start looking for some sells. But if we don't and we see some upside, yeah, I'm just looking for the next kind of higher low in the sequence. We've got a low there, higher low, higher low. Again, looking for that next stepping stone from the push to the upside. So just following that larger structure at play. But in terms of entries and the setup, this is what I'm looking at for NZD CAD going into next week. Okay, so next up we've got pound NZD. So pound NZD, it's coming to a big level on the daily chart, weekly chart here around 2.15500. And I'm looking at this area as a pretty pivotal area to decide where I'm expecting price to go next. Should we see the break of it, I'm looking for price to push into the swing high up there. around 2.19, sorry. You can see how consistent the market has been with these higher lows, and potentially the trend is just continuing, and we're going to see a push to the high, and the market's going to continue that trend. So if that's the case, then I do want to see price break above the high here at 2.15, and then look for some buys into that same high. If not, and price does reject this area and we see some signs for reversal, which so far we're seeing, then I'm looking for price coming straight back to where we came from, which is back into this area here at 2.1. So I can see price going both ways. It's just up to price to let me know what's the play. Because price is doing such a good job at rejecting, I'm anticipating some sells from this area, and I moved that down. Last week we had a nice break and we tested this area, which was good. Nice buy there. This week, but now price is seeing some heavy rejection from that high, so that tells me there's a good chance we're probably going to get the sell. So I'm looking at this for pound NZD, and like I said, if this area doesn't hold, I will look to switch that bias around, look for the buys, and see if we can fill that range back into 2.19, back into the high up there, and take advantage of the long. So either which way, the shorts or the longs, there's risk to reward there, there's potential. It's just about finding those entries and finding those setups. To me, this is the level I'll be focusing on next week for pound NZD 2.115. Like I said, if we keep rejecting, entries early next week look good, and then targets, back into this area here look good. This area here as well. Don't necessarily have to look for the full home run, but there are areas where you can look to partial out or trail stops, and like the same with the buys there. I do expect us to get to the high, but you can also look other areas to manage that trade. But if we do get above, then I just expect that trend to continue on the daily chart with those higher lows, break and retest, and look for the long back into 2.19. So this is very much the plan for pound NZD. I think some entries could look good early next week as price either breaks through or holds into that level, and then we can plot some entries from that. But that is the plan going to next week for pound NZD. Okay, so next up we got CAD Yen. So CAD Yen is still bearish on, still looking for a big sell for this one. We had a really big move to the downside in July, and I'm still looking for the yen pairs to continue that momentum, which we've yet to see. In fact, we yet to see much with the yen pairs, just been sideways for the past couple of weeks. You can see that on the weekly chart. Again, this week, doji, last week, small bearish candle. Of course, the week before we had a lot of momentum, which is what got us back to this resistance in the first place. And this is the area I'm looking for price to hold. Put that next lower high in and continue to the downside back into the low, and probably a lot further as well if we are going to continue that momentum from July. So in my book, very, very bearish on CAD Yen. And I've always said as long as price holds into 109, which is that same level of resistance, I will retain that bearish bias. If we start breaking through, seeing some higher highs and higher lows, definitely some retest, then I'll rethink things. Maybe we might be going for a bigger pullback, or maybe price just wants to continue the trend back to the high and keep doing what we've done for the past couple of years with the yen pair. So that is definitely a possibility, but for now, as long as we stick to 109, I'm looking for the drop. And in terms of entries, it becomes pretty simple because how price has been moving. We've been consolidating here for, like I said, the past couple of weeks, and because of that, if we can get the break to the downside with some nice momentum, the shorts look really, really good on some retests, and then some shorts back into the low here. That looks like a really healthy target intra-week. Not really intraday. That's a pretty big drop for intraday, but who knows? The yen pairs do have a lot of downside in them. When they do begin to sell, they do drop pretty hard. These are the targets I'm expecting price to get to. But I think a realistic target, if we get the breaking test of that low, some shorts back into 105 look good, but 102 is where I do see price really heading towards, and probably a lot further as well if my higher time frame analysis serves me correctly. But this is really what I'll be looking for CAD Yen. This way you can refine your entry, look for that lower time frame entry on the retest of that low. It's already proven to be pretty sturdy support since price has respected a few times. If we can get the break retest, I think we're going to see a lot of momentum to the downside, and eventually looking for a push into 1-2. So it's up to you how you want to manage that, but that is my plan going to next week for CAD Yen. Okay, so next up we got pound USD. So I am still looking for upside with this one because we're still just about hanging on to this low, and as long as we remain above that, I still stay bullish with pound USD. If we were to go and break through that low and break structure, that would be a bearish signal for me. I'll be looking for lower highs and more downside, back to some of these areas down here. So Pound USD is an important area, and based on how we are looking at price, it's still pretty corrective. So I do think there's a good chance we probably will see some upside. You can see how corrective price is moving in this descending channel, and similar to what we made a comment on with the USD JPY, which correctively moving up to the upside, there's a good chance that we are going to break out of this channel and see some upside, and that could be a nice signal in itself. So looking to take some entries on the breakout, stops below. Of course, the risk reward might not be optimal or not be as tight as we want it to be, but in terms of a nice entry for suitable stop loss, it will definitely give you that. If you're looking to refine the entry, you can wait for that break and look for a retest on that prior high, and look for your entries there on the lower time frames. You can refine your entry there and look for a nice move as well. 1.325 is kind of where I'm looking at for pounds. We do have that kind of head and shoulder possibility at play, left head, right shoulder. So that could look to come into play around that 1.325 area, or we might see the full swing back to the high at 1.34. So again, up to you how you want to manage it. There is upside potential, but definitely coming back into this area is a suitable place to look to at least book some profits or trailer stop, however you want to manage it. But yeah, with pound USD, I'm still looking for buys. First things first, we need to see price actually break out of this channel. Same with dollar yen as well. We could very much respect the high and push down. In that case, that would invalidate the buys altogether. So we do need to see price really break out of that and find some entries off the back of that. Or if you're looking for the break and retest of that area, waiting for price to break out, break the high as well, and then look back for a pullback, find some entries. That way you can really refine it, maximize the risk reward. And again, it's up to you with your targets, but in my book, still very much looking for buys for pound as long as we hold this 1.3 area. Like I said, if we break through, I'll look to revise things. But yeah, bullish from pound, looking for a lot more upside going into next week. Okay, so next up we got pound CAD. So pound CAD, the setup is kind of in play. We were speaking about the retest of this area here, 1.785. We did get that on Wednesday, Thursday. And now price has been looking very, very bullish since then. So pound CAD is coming up to some areas where I do think a reversal is likely, especially on the monthly chart. If we zoom out a little bit, you can see this massive high there. I do think that's a good place where price potentially might see some downside from. Because again, we've been very, very bullish. I do think we'll see some profit taking and some downside. Might not be a big reversal, but I do think the trend could be on pause for a little bit. So as we approach the highs there, I'm not really looking to take buy opportunities. Definitely as a swing trade anyway, with pound CAD. As we approach the high here, this is more of a bearish territory. So if you're looking to get involved with pound CAD, I'll be looking around 1.81 for some shorts. We've seen some nice rejection there as of late. So if we were to get back there again, could see that happen. Looking for your entry signal to take it back down. Or if you're looking for buys, you're waiting for price to come back into that same area of support like we did this week, around 1.785. Find some entries there, and then you can look to play with that range, take it back to the high, back to 1.81, or again, other targets will look good as well. Don't have to look for the home run. But if we are going to stay bullish for pound CAD, we need to keep up with the higher lows, which so far price is doing a pretty good job at. So if we can keep that up, then looking to target back at the high for the buy does make a lot of sense. But I would be careful as we get there, because we've already seen some evidence that the market is struggling at these highs. So yeah, with pound CAD, because the trend hasn't shifted yet, I would still be by default bullish, but I do think that reversal or a bigger pullback will happen soon. So as we get to these highs there, if I'm in a buy, I would definitely be looking to take some profit. And if you're looking for some more aggressive sells, the sell opportunities are there back at the high. Not really my type of trade. I would wait for price to reverse first, and then I'll look for my opportunities for sells. But yeah, I can definitely see that as an area where price is struggling and where we could see some downside in the near future. So keeping a close eye on basically the high and low of this range. I wouldn't look for any trades in here. Not really seeing much value there. I want to be up high or down low with my entry. So 1.785 for the longs or 1.81 for the shorts. And that is very much the plan going to next week for pound CAD. Okay, so over to pound yen. So pound yen, I'm still very bearish on, still looking for a move to the downside. It's been awkward. The market's been very, very corrective, and the past few days it's been moving sideways, not even slowly to the upside. So I'm looking for a big sell. Again, the plan with the yen pairs is big sell off in July, looking for the continuation of that. We've been slowly grinding higher, but I do think price is about to top out soon. You can see how corrective price has been moving. We had this upwards channel over here, which run out of juice, and since then the market is now a bit sideways. So what I want to see with pound yen is a break of 193.400, we'll call it, and then I like the opportunities for some shorts. And in fact, a lot of yen pairs are setting up like this now. We're seeing a lot of sideways price action, creating a lot of ranges. So if we can get some strong breaks of the downside of those ranges, looking for the retest, then opens up some nice opportunities to get some nice refined entries and some shorts. And again, if the sells do play out how I expect them to do, then there is a lot of downsides. There's a lot of targets you can look at. The low here looks good around 190. Of course, you got the low here, which is more or less around that daily low there at 183, 182. So there's just a lot of downside potential for pound yen, which is why I'm really excited about the yen pairs. If we are going to see those moves, I do expect them to play out pretty well. And looking at the higher time frames as well, with this bullish trend, we're trading at a really big high. But I do think it's time to see some downside. We've been pushing to the upside for the past 2 years, and now that we're at this high, we saw a really big rejection a couple of months ago. I do think it's time for a retracement. The bigger move still may be to the upside, but I am anticipating a bit of a breather with these yen pairs. And until I see some strong evidence that the market is really starting to trend, I'm going to keep with that bearish bias. So the plan for pound yen, I think some shorts from 193, of course, waiting for the break, because like I said, maybe the price is going to push to the upside and break high. If that's the case, then you don't want to be looking for shorts. But if you do see a strong break lower, get some retest around the high here, which also lines up with that high there really nicely. Some targets back at 190 look good, and if you're looking for the full swing back to 183, I think that looks good as well, especially if you have a trading stop method. You just see how price goes, and if price does reverse against you, you'll be trailed out for a profit anyway. So yeah, that's how I see pound yen planning out, and keep a close eye on 193, but still expecting a lot more downside for pound yen into next week. Okay, so on to gold. So gold is pretty straightforward to me because the trend is just so clean and so bullish that if I'm looking to follow the trend, I'm only just looking for buying opportunities. I'm not looking to sell gold whatsoever until I see some signs that the market's about to reverse or go for a bit of a bearish counter trend or bearish phase. Just not seeing any evidence of that at the moment. So very, very bullish on gold. I'll be looking for breaking retest for a while now, but being very unfortunate. Had a really nice break there, didn't come back for the retest unfortunately, so we just kept pushing. Did it again here, had the high, nice breakout, looked for the retest, never got it. Now I'm looking for the same again. We've got the high here, price is just broken through, and now I'm looking for the retest of that same area. Hopefully third time's the charm. Find some entries around 2680, and then again just look to take it how far we can. I would definitely be trading stops with this one, just having an open-end target, because who knows how far gold can go. We've been flying so effortlessly. So there is just a lot of room to the upside, and I've marked out some areas which we could be attracted towards: 2750, 2800. A lot of people talking about 3k as well, which is still quite far away, but who knows, gold could be looking to trade at those prices sooner than we think. So looking for some entries for some longs, breaking retest, keeping it very, very simple. That's why I want to look for my entries, as I've looked for the past. Unfortunately not quite happened, but hopefully we can see that retest come along. And then yeah, 2750 could be a nice target in terms of a psychological target. Let's say for example we do pull back from the high here, and that of course could be a nice target back into the high. But really I'll just trail stops and just see how far we can take it. But yeah, expecting more upside, just waiting for a pullback around 2680, 2690, and seeing how far we can take it into next week. Okay, so over to Bitcoin. So Bitcoin, it looks like we're trying to tease a potential breakout here. I'm not quite sold yet. It technically has closed above, and we've seen some momentum above it, but nothing to get excited about. Small candlesticks to the upside. Again, this could be the start of a breakout, but I need to see more momentum. Firstly, I want to see price really clear this high here, because that's effectively the area we'll be looking for the retest for entries. So really the setup for me is the break above 69,250, and then looking for the retest there for the buys, and then onwards and upwards for Bitcoin. So the potential is there. We're seeing some signs the market is breaking out. This is the channel I've been looking at. It does look like we are breaking through, but the momentum's not there. The breakout above this high is not there. So staying patient, waiting for that breakout to happen, and then we can start talking about some entries on the retest. And on the flip side, maybe it's a fake out. Maybe price wants to break back inside, and then we start to see that big swing to the downside, because as I mentioned last week, this is the make or break area for Bitcoin. If we hold, we're coming right back down to 52k. If we are going to get the breakout, then the sky's the limit. We could be looking at 80k, 90k, 100k, and possibly a lot more. We could just see a copy and paste of this big move here just come out the top there. So there's a lot of upside potential for Bitcoin, as you're all aware of. But in terms of the technicals, I wouldn't say they're quite there yet. We're seeing some signs, sure, but in terms of the setup to get long, this is really what I'm looking for, the breaking retest of 69.70k. If not, if we see a strong close in the daily back inside that, for me, that's a sign that, okay, a bit of a fake out, expecting some sales to come into play, especially if we can get back underneath this high here. In fact, that could be a really nice place for a retest. Find your entries on the full hour maybe, and look for that swing back into 52k. So there is still the possibility for Bitcoin to go both ways here. Like I said, I'm not sold on the buys yet, but we are seeing some signs, so let's wait for the breakout. If it doesn't happen and price sells off again, well, we can still take advantage of the sales too, and the risk to reward still looks pretty good if you can get a swing back to the low end of the channel anyway. So keep an eye for the buys and the sells. Breaks above 69.70k, we'll call it, and then shorts below 66, 67k. And yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking at going to next week for Bitcoin. Okay guys, so last but not least, we've got a bonus pair, which for this week is silver. So silver looking very bullish. Look at that candle, beautiful candle breaking the high, and that's the key thing I've really been waiting for with silver, the break of the high here. Not a big fan of getting involved because it's been so sideways, but now that really sends to me, okay, price is back bullish, the buyers are stepping in, we've broken through that resistance, and now I'm expecting that to hold and see some more upside. You can see we've been moving in this channel here very well, so now I'm looking for the pullback, the next high low in this sequence, and yeah, looking to take gold and silver as high as possible. Again, in terms of targets, it's difficult with this one because we haven't traded at these prices for a long time. In fact, the last time we were trading at these prices was back in 2012, so over a decade ago we were here. But long term, I do think there's a lot more upside for silver, expecting us to push back into those all-time highs. So the way I see it, it's really onwards and upwards. And I'm expecting to see a bit of a trend because silver has kind of lagged behind gold. Gold's been really trending very well since the start of the year, and silver has been pushing to the upside for a while, but it has been quite corrective, and we haven't really seen a real clean trend going. So now with this break, momentum looks like it's picking up. I think it could be the start of it. So if I can get a retest in the high here, especially for trading stops, who knows how far the position could go. And yeah, I'm still very bullish on gold, so really liking the breakout, a lot of momentum. Now it's just about staying patient for the retest and finding the entries. Again, in terms of targets, you can keep it very simple. Let's say we were to pull back from here, and that would be the most recent high. That looks good for a target, and you can call it a day there. But for me, because I'll be looking to swing, I'll have an open target and just trail beneath structure and just see how far I can take it, because there's just a lot of upside potential with silver, as I keep mentioning. But yeah, silver very bullish. Hopefully we can find some break and retest around 32.4, 32.5, and hopefully find some entries hopefully next week. So that is definitely the plan with gold and silver, just looking to buy them both on pullbacks. But that, guys, does take us to the end of the analysis for the week. If you have enjoyed it, found it useful, please be sure to smash the like button, and of course subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already. Drop a comment down below any pairs you're looking at to trade for next week. I'm eager to find out what you guys are looking at. Guys, make sure you are in the Discord for Elevating Traders. As I said, completely free to join. Discount opportunities will be available there. We are live, we've launched, so make sure you join the party. The Discord link will be in the description, so you can guys go and check it out there. But have a great weekend, guys, and I'll catch you all in the new week.